this is my qualitative data collection techniques. So, qualitative research gathers in-depth descriptive data to do with people's emotions and feelings and thoughts towards a subject. It doesn't look at numerical forms like quantitative data does, so that makes qualitative data much harder to analyse, especially as it's usually done on an individual basis. And types of qualitative data are research methods are you would have open-ended questions, unstructured observations, unstructured interviews, semi-structured interviews, and you can have diary accounts. So there are open and closed questions and self-report techniques. So an open question is a question where the participant can answer in detail. So the responses are going to be personal and independent from other people, and they're really hard to analyse. You've got closed questions, which can be answered with a short phrase, so they provide the researcher with a factual answer. And the researcher controls the plausibility of the answers, so that, for example, in a questionnaire where you can tick yes or no box, the researcher is also in control of the conversation if you're having an interview, and closed questions are easy to quantify and interpret, but this can also lead to forced responses, so that's going to lack realism. So an example of an open question would be a great British gymnast training on the beam. So you're going to ask them, do you like it and why? So then they're able to expand and give a lot of detail and insight to their opinions. Whereas a closed question to a gymnast would be, do you like training on the beam? And they're going to have a yes or no answer. So self-report techniques would include respondents reading a survey and choosing their own response, which is going to be dependent on their beliefs and feelings. So this is usually done in aid of research. For instance, a questionnaire is going to be an example of this, but there are going to be issues with validity because people may not always provide accurate answers. So if, say, a Great British gymnast had an injury, but they wanted to continue training because training is necessary for them to keep up with the skill that they have, and they were told to fill out a questionnaire with a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really painful, 1 being not painful, they may answer it 2, but really they're on a scale of 9. They just want to lie, so for their own interest. So there are lots of different types of interviews. So an unstructured interview is based loosely around a topic where there are no predetermined questions. So for instance, you might want to find out about body image within the British gymnasts. An advantage of unstructured interviews are you can cover a range of issues. So the participant might bring up a issue that the researcher hadn't thought of before, so that allows the researcher to respond and direct the questions in any fashion. You can also find out a range of unexpected outcomes and responses. So you can also build rapport easily because an unstructured interview is quite similar to a conversation, so this may increase validity levels. However, disadvantages are that the researcher can forget to ask an important question, and they may have accidentally manipulated an answer due to the wording or body language that they use. So that's going to cause a biased response because the participant wants to have social desirability, and it's a lot harder to analyse a group of answers as responses can vary enormously, which is going to cause really low reliability levels. And with unstructured, it's very easy to go off topic. So semi-structured interview is based around a topic and there may be a few pre-arranged questions, but the researcher can divert topic if new ideas and responses are brought up to get a more rounded understanding of the issue. So for an advantage, they can still direct and respond to the questions, but they also have a guidance, so they're not going to get lost with the influx of information. And you can also cover a range of issues, and you won't forget to ask important questions, and rapport can be built easily, which will also increase validity levels. But still, it's going to be easy to go off topic. However, it is slightly easier to analyse than unstructured interviews, but it's still difficult because you can get a range of responses. So a structured interview is a list of predetermined and standardised questions, so the researcher cannot go off topic. So an advantage of this is you're going to have really high reliability levels, because it can be repeated in exactly the same way time and time again. The data is easy to analyse because of this, so this might give the researcher more confidence as they know exactly what they're going to say. However, you can't veer off the topic even if an interesting point is brought up. So this also means that you can't probe further. So if the participant gives a very closed question, that's going to cause issues. So it's also harder for you to build a rapport, and this might reduce participant honesty levels, which will decrease the validity of the study. So a focus group is a group-based interview where the group interaction is essential, and it usually takes the form of a semi-structured interview. So the advantages of this is target population can easily be represented, and therefore findings can often be generalised, and you can gain a wide variety of responses that feed off each other to gain a more analytical and defined data. And you can also get data from different individuals with different viewpoints, and they're going to be discussing why, so that will also give you more refined response. However, the disadvantage is there might be dominant characters within the focus group, so they're going to give the most input, and the researcher has to be skilled at managing the group, because if a dominant character can also make others in the group too shy to voice their opinions for the sake of social desirability, so it's easy for the participants just to agree for social acceptance, so the researcher is going to have to manage them well to stop this. And lack of validity can also be quite low, as people might not be completely honest with a group of strangers. So observation is when behaviours are observed and recorded without any deliberate manipulation of variables. So as you can see, there are 3 types of observation that I'm going to talk about. Controlled observation is when the researcher carries out a structured observation with a standardised procedure. So the researcher is going to decide the exact context within the study, for example, where it takes place and with who. This type of observation is coded on a scale instead of a detailed written account. So it's also an overt observation, as the researcher will explain the research aim to the group. They're usually non-participant, which means the researcher avoids any direct contact. So for instance, a gymnastic coach and researcher watch the gymnast through a two-way mirror to see how they behave when they left the gymnasium. So the strength of this, it's a controlled observation, so it can easily be replicated by other researchers using the same observation schedule. So that's going to have high reliability. The data obtained from structured observations is a lot easier and quicker to analyse as it's quantitative, so this means it's less time consuming method compared to naturalistic observations. So controlled observations are also fairly quick to conduct, which means that lots of them can take place over a short amount of time. So this means that a large sample can be obtained, resulting in findings being representative and having the ability to be generalised to a large population. However, the limitations of this are controlled observations can lack validity due to the Hawthorne effect, which is demand characteristics. So this is when a participant knows they're being watched, they might act differently to be the way that they are wanted to be. Naturalistic observation is an unstructured observation which involves studying participants' behaviour in natural surroundings. The researcher records what they see in whatever way they can. So, for example, a researcher watches how gymnasts prepare for a competition on the day and records it. So, strengths of this, you're going to have high ecological validity, as you can observe how the participants naturally act. You're going to be able to generate new ideas, so the researcher has the opportunity to study the entire situation, and they might come across things they haven't thought of. Limitations though, so it's conducted on a micro scale, which is basically really small, so this is going to lack a representative sample, so it's going to be biased in relation to age, gender, social class or ethnicity, and it also lacks the ability to generalise to wider populations. So it's also going to be less reliable as the extraneous variables can't be controlled, and the inter-research reliability is poor, and cause and effect can't be established. So participant observations similar to natural observations, however the research can join in and become part of the group they're studying. So this means that they're going to get a deeper insight into the norms and values of the group. So for instance, a researcher with gymnastics experience pretends to be another gymnast to find out their norms and values when another person joins in their ranks. So this is a covert observation, which means that the research is undercover and they are having a false identity and their purpose is hidden. It could have been an overt participant observation, so the researcher reveals their true identity and the purpose to the group and asks their permission to observe. So the strength of this is higher validity with covert, because the group being studied act true, so they're not going to change their behaviour. However, it's going to be lower with overt because the group might want to portray themselves differently. And limitations, so history recall with covert, you have to use your memory to record it, as you're not going to be able to do it at this point with them because they'll know. And there's less, which goes to less validity, and if the research becomes too involved in the study and with the group, they might lose objectivity and become biased. Right, so qualitative questionnaire is a questionnaire it's a questionnaire that seeks to find out reasons for certain behaviours exhibited by a chosen population sample. So for instance, a questionnaire to find out how gymnasts feel about their body image. So the advantages of this are they're not pressured to give false answers, it's practical and it's easy to do because it can be electronic or postal, so you can gain lots of data from a large sample in a small time duration. You're going to have high reliability because it's easy to repeat, which also makes it easy to analyse. Disadvantage is its low validity due to social desirability, or someone might not understand the question due to wording, or they could just lie, they might skip questions and they might pre-read it and decide not to do it.